Right now, the sky is doing something it does only once a year in exactly this way. The moon has gone completely dark in Pisces, the final sign, the deepest water, the place where the entire zodiacal story exhales before it begins again. The Pisces new moon has arrived. And if you are watching this on March 19th, or in the hours surrounding it, you are sitting inside one of the most quietly powerful moments of the entire lunar calendar. Quietly, because it doesn't announce itself the way you might expect a significant moment to announce itself. There's no visible change in the sky. The moon is gone, the darkness is total, and the night looks like any other night to anyone who isn't paying attention. But for the people who are paying attention, for the people who have been moving through this Mercury retrograde with any degree of awareness, who have been feeling the weight of what this period has been surfacing and returning and insisting upon, this moment carries something that very few other moments in the year can match. It carries the feeling of standing at a genuine threshold, of having arrived somewhere, of the particular kind of stillness that follows a long period of motion, a stillness that isn't empty but full of everything the previous cycle accumulated, and full of everything the new cycle is preparing to become. And the question living inside that stillness, the one that the Pisces new moon is quietly asking you right now, is, who are you standing here at the beginning of this? That question deserves a real answer. And the first hours of this new cycle are exactly the right time to begin giving it one. Before understanding what this new moon is opening, it helps to understand what just closed. The lunar cycle that is ending tonight began in Pisces a year ago and has been accumulating experience, unresolved situations, emotional sediment, and unfinished business throughout its entire arc. And then Mercury went retrograde, and the retrograde began its excavating work, returning the unfinished things, surfacing the buried ones, insisting on the relevance of what had been passed too quickly. The weeks leading up to this new moon have been, for many people, some of the most emotionally complex and interior-focused weeks they've experienced in a long time. And now the cycle turns. Now the moon goes dark, which in the language of lunar energy means the old is complete, the new is beginning, and the ground between those two states is precisely where you are standing right now. A new moon is not a passive event that happens independently of you. It is a moment that you are participating in, whether consciously or not. The reset it offers, the new directional energy it initiates, the quality of beginning it makes available, none of that operates on you from the outside. It operates through you, through your willingness to engage with it deliberately, through the degree of presence you bring to what this specific threshold is offering. The Pisces new moon, in particular, is asking for a very specific quality of presence. Pisces doesn't respond to force or to the highly structured, goal-oriented, efficiency-maximizing approach that most people bring to new beginnings. It responds to something softer and more receptive than that. It responds to the willingness to feel, to listen inwardly, to let the first impressions of this new cycle arrive and register before you start deciding what they mean or what to do with them. The first hours of this new moon are asking you to be a receiver before you are a planner. And what you receive in these hours, if you are quiet enough and honest enough to receive it, will tell you more about the direction of the weeks ahead than anything you could strategize your way toward. Mercury is still retrograde as this new moon arrives. That fact matters, and the way it matters is subtle but important. Normally, a new moon arrives as a clean opening, the previous cycle complete, the new one beginning with relatively clear ground. But a new moon that arrives inside a Mercury retrograde arrives with an asterisk. The retrograde hasn't finished its work yet. The past situations it has been returning, the conversations it has been reopening, the truths it has been working to surface, those are still in motion as the new cycle begins. Mercury doesn't station direct until tomorrow, around March 20th, which means the opening hours of this new cycle are carrying both things simultaneously. The forward-facing, initiating energy of the new moon, reaching toward what the new cycle will build, and the backward-facing, completing energy of the retrograde, still returning what the old cycle left unfinished. If you've been feeling both of those pulls at once today, the sense of new beginning and the insistence of something from the past arriving one more time, that is not contradiction. That is the precise energetic weather of this specific moment. And navigating it wisely requires something that most new beginning energy doesn't usually require: patience with the unresolved. The willingness to let the new cycle begin without demanding that everything from the old one be completely settled. Because not everything will be completely settled by the time Mercury stations direct tomorrow. Some of what the retrograde has been surfacing will travel into the new cycle as material to be worked with rather than debris to be cleared. And receiving that material consciously, knowing what it is, choosing deliberately how to orient toward it, carrying it as information rather than as burden, is entirely possible. Possible and available to you right now, in the first hours of this cycle. The retrograde ending tomorrow doesn't mean everything it surfaced goes away. It means the excavation stops and the integration begins. And the Pisces new moon is, in fact, an extraordinary container for integration, for taking the raw material of what this entire period has surfaced and beginning to understand what it's actually for, what it's been trying to show you, what the new cycle can do with it if you let it be information rather than just wait. In the first hours of this new moon, you may notice a very particular kind of signal arriving. It tends to arrive quietly, often in the form of an impression rather than a thought, a feeling rather than a conclusion, an unexpected sense of clarity about something you've been uncertain about, a shift in how a specific situation feels, not changed in its external facts, but changed in how you are holding it, the angle from which you are seeing it, the emotional register in which it is now living. A moment of recognition, arriving without announcement, that something has completed, that a chapter that has been technically over for a while is now actually over, in a way that your interior life has caught up with and can finally acknowledge. These signals are worth slowing down for when they arrive. They are the new moon doing what it does in its first hours, beginning to reorganize the emotional landscape of your inner life, to prepare the ground for what the new cycle is going to need in order to grow. And in Pisces, this reorganization is not logical. It doesn't follow a plan. It follows the deeper organizing intelligence of what your life actually needs, as distinct from what your thinking mind has decided it needs. Which means the first impressions of this new moon deserve to be received rather than analyzed, felt rather than immediately interpreted. If you feel in the first hours of this cycle a sudden and inexplicable sense of relief, receive that. Don't immediately interrogate it for its cause. Let the relief be information. Something has released. Let yourself register the space that opens when something that was being held gets put down. If you feel, in the first hours of this cycle, an unexpected sadness or a surge of emotion that seems disproportionate to the immediate circumstances, receive that too. The completion of a lunar cycle in Pisces often surfaces the accumulated grief of everything the cycle carried that wasn't fully felt along the way. This is not a bad sign. It is the cycle completing honestly. And the emotion, when it's allowed to move through rather than being stopped and managed, is brief and ultimately clearing in a way that suppressed emotion never is. If you feel, in these first hours, an unusual quietness, a stillness of the inner life that feels different from numbness, more like arrival than absence, receive that as the signal it is. You have arrived at the beginning. The cycle has turned, and the quietness is the space between the last exhale and the first breath of something new. One of the most practical and immediately useful things you can do in the first hours of this Pisces new moon is to pay attention to what arises in you without being triggered by anything external. The spontaneous thought, the unprompted feeling, the image or the memory or the sense of direction that arrives from the interior rather than being produced in response to the demands of the day. Because the Pisces new moon initiates a cycle that is specifically oriented toward the interior life, toward intuition, toward emotional intelligence, toward the kind of knowing that operates at a frequency below the ordinary thinking mind. And the quality of information that becomes available through that channel in the first hours of the cycle tends to be unusually clear and unusually honest, unclouded by the strategic thinking and protective editing that ordinarily filter what the deeper self is allowed to communicate to the surface. What arises in you today, in these first hours, when you are not responding to an external demand, what arises in the quiet moment, in the pause between one activity and the next, in the space where you simply sit with what is present, that is the first transmission of the new cycle. The first signal of the direction this cycle is trying to move in. And the Pisces new moon is one of the few moments in the lunar calendar where that first transmission arrives with the kind of emotional depth and honest precision that makes it genuinely worth paying attention to. You don't need to know what to do with it yet. The first hours of a new moon are for receiving, not for planning. But you do need to let it arrive, to give it the space and the stillness it needs to complete its transmission, to resist the very understandable impulse to immediately convert the feeling into a task, the insight into a strategy, the quiet knowing into a to-do list. Let it be what it is first. Let it tell you what it's carrying. And then, from that informed and honest place, decide how you want to orient yourself toward the weeks ahead. Setting an intention on a new moon is a practice that a lot of people approach with a lot of ceremony, and the ceremony can be meaningful if it is grounded in genuine honesty. But the most powerful intention you can set at a Pisces new moon, the one that has the best chance of actually becoming the organizing principle of the weeks ahead, rather than just a hopeful statement written in a journal, is the one that comes from a real reckoning with where you are, not where you'd like to be, not the aspirational version of yourself that you're working toward, where you actually are, standing here on the first day of this new cycle, having moved through everything the previous weeks and months have surfaced and returned and insisted upon. From that real and honest place, what do you want the new cycle to be for? What quality of experience? What kind of relationship with yourself and with the people and work and meaning in your life? What shift, even a small one, in the direction of something truer to who you are becoming and what you are here to do? The Pisces new moon is extraordinarily receptive to intentions that are formed from emotional honesty rather than from aspiration alone. Because Pisces is the sign of deep feeling and deep truth, and it responds to what is genuinely real in you rather than to what is ideally preferred. An intention set from the honest weight of what this period has shown you, from the place of knowing what you actually need, having been returned to it again and again by the retrograde, carries a specificity and an authenticity that intentions formed from more abstract hopes simply don't have. So in the first hours of this cycle, if you are moved to set an intention, let it be simple. Let it be honest. Let it come from the felt sense of what this period has been teaching you rather than from the wished-for sense of what you'd like the next period to look like. One sentence, if you can. Clear, direct, and true in a way that you would recognize if you tested it against your most honest self. That kind of intention, set on the first day of a Pisces new moon while the emotional depth and honest clarity of this threshold is still fresh, goes into the new cycle as something solid, as something the cycle can actually orient around. There is a chapter closing that happens at the Pisces new moon that tends to be more complete than the closings available at other points in the year. Pisces is the sign of endings that precede beginnings, the exhale before the inhale, the darkness before the new light. And the new moon falling here is the moment when whatever has been ready to close finally fully closes. Not just technically, not just by declaration, in the felt reality of your interior life. You may notice, in the first hours of this cycle, that something you've been carrying feels different, lighter, more finished. Like the period of its active influence in your life has genuinely passed, and you are standing on the other side of it, looking back with a clarity and a distance that wasn't available while you were inside it. This is the chapter closing. This is the Pisces new moon doing what it is uniquely equipped to do, completing the emotional arc of something that has been moving toward its end throughout the previous cycle, and releasing you into the new one with a genuine sense of having arrived somewhere other than where you started. Let that closing be real when it arrives. Don't hold on to what is completing itself out of habit or familiarity or the comfort of the known, even when the known is something that wasn't good for you. Let the chapter close. Let the cycle's completion be what it is. And then turn, with whatever honest readiness you have, toward what the new cycle is preparing to offer. Because the Pisces new moon, in addition to being the deepest emotional reset in the lunar calendar, is also the beginning of a new cycle that holds real potential. The weeks ahead carry the possibility of something genuinely new. The potential for the life you've been working toward to take a meaningful step closer to the surface. The potential for relationships to deepen, for creative directions to clarify, for the interior work of the previous cycle to begin expressing itself in the external circumstances of your life. But potential is not destiny. What the new cycle is capable of becoming is determined, in significant part, by how you enter it, by the quality of presence and intention you bring to its first hours, by whether you arrive at this threshold as someone who has been paying attention, who has done at least some of the honest work this period has been asking for, who is willing to begin again from a real place rather than a merely hopeful one. You are here, which means some part of you has been paying attention. Some part of you recognized the significance of what this period was offering and chose to engage with it rather than to move through it on autopilot. That choice, made sometime in the weeks leading up to this new moon, and made again now by the quality of attention you are bringing to its first hours, is the ground in which what comes next will grow. Mercury stations direct tomorrow. The excavation ends. The retrograde releases its backward pull, and the forward momentum of communication and decision and external motion begins to return. And the Pisces new moon, having initiated the new cycle today, will begin to build its energy over the coming weeks, growing from the dark seed of this first day toward the fullness that arrives at the Pisces full moon later in the year. What that growth looks like, what the new cycle becomes, what the seeds planted in these first hours produce as the weeks unfold, all of that remains to be lived. That is the nature of beginnings. They are full of possibility before they are full of form. And the Pisces new moon, of all the new beginnings available in the lunar calendar, is the most comfortable with uncertainty, the most able to hold potential without forcing it into premature shape, the most attuned to the slower, deeper, interior-first kind of becoming that produces the most lasting change. You don't need to know today what the new cycle will bring. You don't need to have the map already drawn. What you need, in these first hours, is simply to be present to the beginning, to feel the threshold you are standing on, to let the silence of this dark moon register as what it actually is, not absence, but potential, not emptiness, but the particular fullness of a moment that is still becoming everything it is going to be. This cycle is beginning right now, in this moment, in you, and the version of you that enters it having been present to what this period was offering, having felt the weight of what was completed and the space of what is opening. That version is beginning from a more real and more honest and more prepared place than most people begin new cycles from. That matters. The ground you are standing on matters. The honesty you have been willing to bring to these past weeks matters. Not as a guarantee of what the new cycle will produce. Nothing is guaranteed, but as the quality of the soil. And good soil, honest soil, the kind that has been turned and cleared and given light, grows things that thinner and less prepared ground simply cannot. The Pisces new moon is here. The cycle has turned. And the first insight it is offering, the one available in these quiet, early hours, before the day builds into its ordinary demands, is this. You made it to the other side. Everything this retrograde was returning, everything the balsamic phase was asking you to complete, everything the final hours before this new moon were pressing you toward, you moved through it. Some of it you moved through consciously and deliberately. Some of it moved through you in ways you didn't fully choose. Either way, you are here, standing at the beginning of something, with the particular kind of clarity that only comes from having arrived somewhere after a long and honest journey. The new cycle receives you exactly as you are. The Pisces new moon doesn't ask for a polished or completed version of you before it offers its beginning. It asks for the real one, the honest one, the one who is still holding some things that need more time, who is still integrating what this period surfaced, who is still, as all real people in real lives always are, somewhere in the middle of becoming rather than finished with the becoming. That person is welcome at this threshold. That person is, in fact, exactly who this new cycle is designed for. Stay aware in the hours and days ahead of what this beginning is initiating. The subtle shifts in how situations feel. The unexpected clarity arriving in quiet moments. The sense, growing slowly as the new light returns, of a direction that feels more like yours than the direction of the cycle that just ended. The Pisces new moon has arrived. The new cycle is here. Pay attention to how it begins in you, because the beginning, met with presence and honesty, is where everything that follows takes its shape.